Yesterday, Apple announced its iPhone 11, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, and a new iPad. Caught me by surprise, and the prices of some new services. I don't want this to be a recap and explanation of everything that's announced yesterday. There's plenty of people who do that really well. But I want to pick out a couple of things that I have questions, comments, and concerns about. So welcome to the first episode of Questions, Comments, and Concerns. This is the day after. There's already been some great hot takes. So these are just some things that I am excited about, things that I have questions about, and things that I'm concerned about. So I hopped on Twitter and I immediately accidentally followed a wrong thread by @AndyHS, who was instead following the Fresno County Board of Supervisors meeting. And I got sucked into that. He was talking about what was happening in Fresno County and the new county supervisor, Steve Brandow. Then I remembered that Apple was live broadcasting this video on YouTube for the very first time, which I think is pretty great. Makes it very convenient. I did initially get sucked into a series of videos that Square recently uploaded where Jack Dorsey talks to Killer Mike about opening a small business in 2019. It was very cool to hear the side of the story of Killer Mike opening his own barbershop. So some initial thoughts about Apple Arcade. I can't wait to pay every month to play Frogger.
You will have dozens of different outfits that you can put your Frogger in. Today, we have picked this adorable bathing suit.
I've never paid for a subscription service for a video game or series of video games, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use Apple Arcade. Yeah, I don't think that the Apple Arcade is going to be something that I'm super interested in unless they get some really killer games. And even then, I'm the kind of person who would rather buy a game, because it takes me a very long time to finish a video game. Rather than shell out $5 a month and play it in my very slow time pace, I'd probably just pay $20, buy the game, have it take me the year and a half that it's going to take me to finish the game, rather than paying a subscription. It is exciting that Apple got some very AAA game developers as a part of Apple Arcade, but yeah, nothing that's been shown so far excites me. I have a question about the Apple Arcade free trial. Apple is providing a 1-month free trial to Apple Arcade, but are they going to be paying developers for the people who play on the free 1 month? When Apple Music launched, when they were giving away 3 months for free, Taylor Swift had to make a big ruckus about the artists who were not getting paid during the free trial before Apple finally gave in and started paying the artists and musicians and songwriters for the time that was being listened to on the Apple Music free trial. So Apple, let us know. Are you paying developers while people are playing Apple Arcade on the free trial? Moving on to Apple TV Plus. The biggest news for me was the fact that anyone who buys a major Apple device will get 1 year of Apple TV Plus for free. I was totally not expecting a new iPad announcement. The iPad, just iPad, is getting a screen bump. I was not expecting that announcement. I would have thought that all of the iPad announcements would be happening in October, like last year. This iPad upgrade really closes the gap between the iPad and the iPad Air. And you can find the iPad Air on sale at other retailers other than Apple for $100 off frequently. So it's very hard to recommend this new iPad over the iPad Air unless you just really need to save some money. But like I said, you can really find an iPad Air for a easier price. So the iPad itself didn't really surprise me or impress me, but just the fact that they announced a new iPad that really kind of closes the gap between the Air and the iPad just kind of surprised me, that's all. Adding the smart connector is great. Finally, a native keyboard for the entry-level iPad, especially when it's geared towards education. But yeah, it's still hard to recommend. Apple Watch. I still don't have an Apple Watch. I don't think I'm going to buy an Apple Watch quite yet, but the Series 5 announcement was pretty impressive. The opening video was probably the most impressive video that Apple has done. Yeah, it was a very touching video. They FaceTime called some users and customers of the Apple Watch, let them share their story, and it was very, very impressive. I don't know if it was made in-house by Apple or by their agency TBWA, but kudos to whoever thought that up and executed it. It was an excellent little video. Like, it almost made me want to get an Apple Watch, but I think I'm still going to hold off. Definitely targeted at owners of a Series 2 or Series 3 Apple Watch, not the Series 4. The Phantom update of 32 gigabytes is kind of exciting. Apple did not publicly announce that during the keynote, but if you do a little digging, you can see that the Apple Watch Series 5 has 32 gigs instead of 16 gigs, which is pretty nice if you're going to go for a run and not take your phone with you. And then at the end of the Apple Watch segment was a proper Apple Watch ad, but halfway through I realized it's narrated by Michael Cera.
And opens portals. Kidding.
I was just listening to it and I was like, that's Michael Cera! But now to the main event, the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. I've already set up my pre-order. I just need to wake up Friday morning at 5 a.m. and hit order, but I want the midnight green 64 gigabyte. I'm going to be doing the Apple payment plan that includes Apple Care Plus, and I'm going to try out the Apple Care loss and theft. Please don't steal my phone. We'll start with the iPhone 11. I think that it's great that the iPhone 11 is replacing the XR, is getting the ultra-wide lens, and is going to have a longer battery life than the XR. I think that's remarkable. That is going to sacrifice a little bit of weight. I believe the iPhone 11 is going to weigh slightly more than the iPhone XR, but if it means better battery life, when the iPhone 11 was being announced, I was considering just buying an iPhone 11. I was thinking I could live with just an iPhone 11 if it had an OLED screen. I really like OLED screens. My iPhone 10, it's got the second best screen next to my plasma TV. I do also use the telephoto lens quite a bit, so it would be kind of frustrating to not have the telephoto lens on an iPhone 11. So that's why I'm going to still stick with an iPhone 11 Pro. But the iPhone 11 is very, very compelling. If you don't need that telephoto lens, if you don't need an OLED screen, it's going to be a very nice phone. When the XR came out and the XS Max and XS came out, it seemed like there was a bigger divide, but the divide seems a lot closer between the iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro. Yeah, the biggest thing about the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max is the cameras. They spent the majority of the time talking about it, and you know what? It worked on me. I'm very excited for the ultra-wide lens. I'm very excited for the updated True Depth FaceTime cameras. I'm excited for the third-party app support, like from Filmic, Pro, and Halide. But I'm very excited that I no longer have to use a wide-angle lens attached to my phone case to get a big selfie or do some vlogging just with my phone. That being said, though, Moment Lenses has already announced on their Twitter feed that they have cases available for the iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro at launch. What? The ultra-wide lens does not have image stabilization. That doesn't necessarily bother me. An ultra-wide lens is less susceptible to shakes in video, and I'm more of a video-geared person, but it doesn't help a shaky hand for photos. Then again, I don't see why that won't come to a future model, probably even just the next generation. The stabilization on the standard lens and the telephoto lens is very, very impressive. When they announced that that short video filmed at the Salt Flats was completely handheld, my jaw almost hit the floor. Another thing that I found very, very impressive about the iPhone 11 Pro is that the OLED screen can hit a max of 1200 nits. Now that is only when playing HDR content, but that's still amazing. My Atomos Ninja 5 recorder hits 1000 nits. The bigger Atomos screens will hit 1500 nits. And that is sustained, but that's with a fan. Here, you can hear the fan from this little thing. And it is also a recorder, but it is crazy impressive to see a phone hit 1200 nits. That's wild to me. It's probably going to hit your battery life pretty hard watching HDR footage. But aside from movies on iTunes and footage that gets uploaded to Vimeo in HDR, there's not a lot of HDR content to consume on the web right now. Yeah, even when not watching HDR content, getting 850 nits out of the screen is still very, very impressive. It should be pretty readable in direct sunlight. Another thing that I'm excited about, and this is just dumb, but they're going to put an 18-watt USB-C charger in the box with the iPhone. Finally getting fast charging. Not disappointed. Like the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro is going to extend battery life over previous generation, the XS Max, but by 4 or 5 hours. So if you have an iPhone XS and you upgrade to the iPhone 11 Pro, you can expect 4 more hours of battery life than you're already getting. And if you have the XS Max, the iPhone 11 Pro Max will also get 5 more hours. Like the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max are going to weigh a little bit more than the iPhone XS and XS Max. But again, if that means better battery life, I'm not going to complain. But here's a few things that I'm very excited about that both phones will be getting. Both phones are getting spatial audio and support for Dolby Atmos. So if you're not familiar with Dolby Atmos, surround sound puts sounds in front of you, to the side of you, and behind you. Dolby Atmos has that added Z layer, so you can X, Y, put a sound in a space, but you can also control where it is vertically in the room. The other thing, aside from the ultra-wide lens on the back that both phones are getting, is the upgraded front-facing camera, the TrueDepth camera or FaceTime camera. It can now record in 4K, although albeit at just 30 frames per second, but it can record in 4K. Vlogs are gonna be dope now. But having a 12 megapixel camera on the front of the iPhone is fantastic. It's got a wider field of view, which should also help Face ID, having a wider view of being able to see your face and unlock your phone. One of the things that's coming to both phones, and I don't know if it's gonna trickle down to the XS, 10, or older generations, but the camera app is getting an upgrade that will allow you to push and hold the shutter button and immediately switch you over to video mode. And I immediately worried, like, what happened to burst mode? And Mr. Brian King at BK was there at the Apple event and found out if you push and hold the shutter button and swipe to the left, that will give you a burst mode photo. What this new long press on the shutter does is unifies this UI command over the Apple camera app with Instagram stories and Snapchat stories. Pushing and holding the shutter button on Instagram or on Snapchat triggers a video. So why wouldn't Apple do the same thing, since this seems to be the way the UI is going? Okay, so I want to talk about the future. There are a few things on these phones that I would have loved to see, but maybe low-hanging fruit for future generations of iPhones. First being Touch ID coming back. It's rumored for next year. I'm fine with Face ID. I have a lot of friends who miss Touch ID though, and I can see where they're coming from. It would have been really nice to have Touch ID along with the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. The next thing that would have been nice especially in iPhone 11 Pro, would have been Pro Motion, 120 frames per second or refresh rate coming off the screen. I know that's very difficult to do with an OLED screen, and motion blur is something that people already experience with the 10, XS, XS Max OLED screen, but it doesn't really break the user experience. What it would be nice on is some AR stuff, gaming, and if iPhone ever gets pencil support, I don't think not having pencil support on the phone is something that I really miss, but it would be very, very cool to have 120 frames per second, 120 hertz off of the screen of an iPhone. And then, of course, USB-C. It would have been very, very cool to have a Pro named phone and have that Pro connection like the MacBook, like the iPad Pro. It doesn't kill me to have a separate cable in my bag, a lightning cable, as well as a USB-C cable for my MacBook and iPad, but it would have been fantastic to just have one cable in my bag. One last thing that surprised me and kind of blew my mind was about the Steve Jobs Theater. Over the last couple of keynotes that happened at the Steve Jobs Theater, I couldn't tell where the desks were coming from that had the display units. About 1 hour into the keynote, the wide angle shot revealed that the tables or desks rise out from the ground, toaster style, with the devices on top of them. So I would love to see what it's like underneath the stage, who's prepping these tables, and then the hydraulic system raising them up. I want to know if the floor like slides away, or if Tim Cook is just avoiding holes in the ground when he's walking out and the stage is clean. But that stage looks awesome. Please, Apple, invite me to the next keynote. That's it. Those are my questions, comments, and concerns about the Apple announcement that just took place on September 10th, 2019. I'm going to pre-order an iPhone 11 Pro. Probably not going to buy an Apple Watch yet. Apple Watch Series 5 is impressive. iPhone 11 is very impressive for their price points. I think that Apple has a pretty awesome set of products coming out very soon. So we'll check back in once we get it in our hands. You know, they're blind. So why not call the show Not See Wait? I'm going to name my first child Slofi. No.
Slofi Lowe?
Slofi Lowe. No, that's bad. That's not going to work out.